themselves except for the speakers. And please, the cameras should be only turned on for the speakers. So everybody else, could you please turn the camera on? Off, please. Thank you. So can everybody see my screen?
Yes, Farah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Yep.
So welcome and good evening, everyone. CIBSE UAE members, CIBSE UK Council members, regional partners and collaborators, built environment professionals and students and teachers. Welcome to our launch event of the minimum design standards for building services for Dubai. So I'm just going to run through the agenda today. So I am Farnaz, I'm the chair of CIBSE UAE, and with me is our vice chair.
Hi everyone, this is Imran Sheikh.
And today's agenda is there will be introduction and appreciation by Reid Donovan, our past chair, CIBSE UAE. Objectives of the guide presented by Isa Cocker, chair technical committee. Mechanical overview by Hassan Yunus and Azmi Abul Huda. Electrical overview by Drew Tinsley. Public health engineering, Keith Perry. And then we will have a questions and answer session towards the end. And then knowledge portal introduction by Imran and then closing of the event. May I please ask during the session, if you have any questions, use the messaging button to message the text. All the questions will be collated and we can use those questions during the Q&A session. I would please advise everybody to check if they're still on mute, and during the Q&A session, please just use the function to send questions, please. Some simple housekeeping rules for the session. After the welcome sessions, all the speakers will turn their cameras off to maintain the bandwidth. We request the audience to please turn off your cameras and please mute your microphone and send all questions through the message function. So today our speakers are Reid Donovan, past CIBSE UAE chair, Isa Cocker, CIBSE UAE technical chair, Drew Tinsley, contributor, Hassan Yunus, technical committee contributor, and he's part of our technical committee. Azmi Abul Huda, CIBSE UAE treasurer, and Keith Perry, past technical committee member. Now I will hand over to Reid to start the introduction and the appreciations. Thank you.
Thank you, Farah. Good evening, everybody, and thank you for joining us. Firstly, it's welcome to everyone on the call. It's fantastic to see we've got 118 people that have joined this webinar, which is probably the highest number we've had for some time on any of our events. So thank you for joining. Introduction. So to give you a bit of background to these particular guides, but firstly, just a brief background to the committee itself. So we had our chair AGM meeting last week, a yearly meeting, where Farah was sworn in as the new chair. The original committee was formed 2006. Sorry, God, it was formed in 2014. Sorry. So you know, it's been running for over 6 years, and several people on this call have been part of that journey from the start, which is really great to see. Over the last couple of years, I've personally been the CIBSE chair and also actively involved in the technical committee, which has been led by Isaac Coker and continues to be so going forwards. And it really was born over an idea we have our main committee meeting every month, and then it's followed by the technical committee. And there was a lot of passion about us providing guides locally that would service fellow engineers and help clients and developers in terms of building services design in this region. Also at the same time raising the profile of what we do here. Myself and others on the call, I'm sure you're the same as me, I've been here for 12 years, so I recall like it was yesterday when I first arrived in the region. and I was actually on the Raha Beach project before it was built, and getting into the codes initially, and it was a bit of a minefield, and I was luckily to have people to guide me at that time. So there was a lot of passion involved in the initial idea of doing this, and it was a collective agreement amongst the technical committee that this was the right thing to do. Then we had the challenge of actually doing it. Obviously, an idea is born, which is great, and then we've got to work out how we're going to do it. So it's taken a lot of work. On and off, I think it's probably been close to 2 years in the making from the initial discussion to where we are today in launching these guides. So it's a very proud moment for myself and others on the committee. And on that note, I would just like to say some appreciation to a few people that were involved previously. So I'd like to also say thanks to Chuping Ryan, past chair, and Rafe Hamilton, who was also a past chair, Ali Diab, who's on the call, I believe I saw Ali earlier. Hello, Ali, and Saeed Ashraf. These people were also, past committee members that assisted in this write-up, in addition to the names you'll see in the preface to the documents. So many people have been involved. Many people have collaborated to bring this together as to one. I'm not going to elaborate any further because Isaac's now going to go into a little bit more detail. And on that note, I will hand over to Isaac. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Reid, and thank you all for joining in this afternoon. It all started in 2014 when we decided to put this thing together. And the whole idea was to have a guide which would assist, especially the engineering committee here, newcomers, and also the stakeholders. It took us a few meetings for us to agree on the format and also the content of these guides. And it was then agreed that these guides will be edited and published by CIBSE to provide the necessary authority. As we all know, CIBSE publish guidance and codes, which are internationally recognized and authoritative. So the main objectives, and Reid has mentioned a few, was to bring together all the written and unwritten codes out there into one document to help us to improve on the way we do things here, so we get better design and better building performance, and also to bring consistency in terms of the way we do things. We've all faced sometimes challenges whereby we go through a peer review process and it's very difficult to have a reference document for us to try and settle when there are issues we are at loggerheads. So we believe that this will also help to. And the last, not the least, of all these objectives is to use this as the agenda to start talking to the local authorities here. So the plan now is, once this is launched, we've got a liaison officer now to start talking to the local authorities and ensure that they input into this. And as one of the things we've agreed with CIBSE is that these documents will be updated on a yearly basis. And we would encourage you guys to read the documents and give us your feedback. The only way we can improve the document is by you giving a constructive feedback. And that at the end of this presentation, there will be an email address for you to give us your comments, commentary. And so that then the technical committee will review this commentary or comments, and where we see it's appropriate, they will be incorporated in the document. So in summary, these are the main objectives how we put these things together. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is Hassan Yunus. Like Isaac has mentioned, the purpose of this publication, and specifically the mechanical portion, is to guide building service engineers to the Dubai municipality design requirements. Again, this is not a cookbook. It's a concise document that summarizes the authority requirements. So here you can see the different points that are covered within the design, within the mechanical portion. So first, we basically lay down the local codes, standards, and guidance, as well as the international ones. We go into the minimum building fabric parameters, mainly U values, what are the required U values depending on the window to wall ratios, and also the shading coefficient and the lighting factor. So how much light is going to be going through the windows of the glazing, which is called light transmittance. We go then into the external design temperatures, and I'm sure if you've been here for a long time, you'd remember that we only, or the municipality required us to use 4629 as the dry bulb and the wet bulb that will be used for the cooling load and the fresh air handling unit sizing. This has been changed recently, and the FAHUs now are required to be designed at 3432, so 34 dry bulb and 32 wet bulb. So this is also captured there. Cooling load calculations, it just mentions that the software that to be used should be approved by the municipality. So before you spend a lot of time using, let's say, a new cooling load software that's not approved, or you're not very sure if it's approved or not, it's better to speak to the municipality to make sure that it's actually approved. Lighting power density, mainly that you would be using in the cooling load calculations, that's also in there. Also, it refers to ASHRAE 90.1 and 90.2 in case any of the spaces are not mentioned within the document. A lighting power density exterior, I mean, it's not really very related to the mechanical, but we opted to put it there anyway because we talked anyway about lighting. Infiltration rates, again, the municipality requires that the envelope be designed and constructed and commissioned to have 10 cubic meter per hour per square meter in terms of infiltration, tested at 50 Pascal. In here, you can find that we have advised to use around 0.25 air change per hour for exposed spaces and 0.5 air change per hour for spaces where you have doors. And again, we mentioned that if the door is bigger than like normal doors, then you need to exceed that number and you have to calculate that. For the ventilation rates, mainly this covers ASHRAE standards 62.1, 62.2 for residential and 170 for healthcare facilities. And these are the points that I will cover. I will now pass it to Azmi Abul Huda to continue for the other mechanical points. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Hassan, very much. And my name is Azmi Abul Huda, and I was delighted actually to be part of this technical committee and to contribute to these guidelines. I would like first to appreciate the whole team who contributed to this guideline. And specifically, I would like to appreciate the efforts done by Isaac. Without Isaac, these guidelines would have not really went through. He has put really huge efforts to make this happen. Actually, and as Isaac said, this is just a start. The guidelines are what we have made are a start for future improvements and additions by which will happen only by the review of the public, by a review of the industry for these guidelines. Hopefully, it will become more improved in the future. And maybe it will be, as Isaac said, it will be a opportunity for us to have an agenda when we discuss with the local authorities. We started these discussions several years ago, and we need now to resume those discussions. We need to provide support to the local authorities when we can and where we can. And especially, for example, with regards to the chartership and accreditation, which is taking place with Dubai Municipality, for example, and recently also the UAE Society of Engineers started talking about a scheme for accrediting engineers. Several years ago, when I talked to the past president of CIBSE, they were keen actually to support the local authorities in this regard, to help them and to support them in putting together maybe a scheme for accrediting the local engineers in the UAE. And this will be, these guides might be an opportunity for us to resume these discussions. Regarding the regulations, which we put a guideline for, regulations in Dubai are actually comprehensive and they cover wide range of aspects related to sustainability, related to energy efficiency in buildings, in the built environment field, indoor air comfort. So there is a wide aspect of regulations which really is difficult to put into a brief guideline. We tried our best and we have covered many important points. One of these important points, for example, is the building pressurization, which will improve the infiltration or reduce actually the infiltration rates in buildings, improve the indoor air quality in buildings. Air movement is another important aspect which we really focused in our guide. Air movement is something which is almost overlooked by designers locally here and maybe internationally as well. So we have really put a focus here, how much air movement, what is the velocity of air in indoor environments should be, what is the limit for this, as per, of course, the local guidelines. And another aspect is the ambient wet bulb condition, which Hassan mentioned. And this is very important. Many of the designs which we see locally, the selections of equipment are not done really properly to comply with the regulations. That's why we focused on this, on highlighting the ambient wet bulb, which should be followed by the designers locally. Ventilation rates, again, there are a minimum requirement as per the regulation. However, designers are encouraged to understand the operation of the building and apply the correct ventilation rates, which might go above the minimum requirement depending on the application itself. And the demand control ventilation is another clause in our regulations. And this is, again, is very important factor to be applied in spaces within the building which have high occupancy rates. And finally, we have touched on the fire and life safety systems. Of course, it was very brief, and I advise whoever wants really to know more details, they should go to the fire code, for example, to the UAE fire code, and understand the requirements that should be included in the VAC design with regards to the fire and safety issues, fire dampers locations, car park ventilation, and other aspects. This is, in general, this was the remaining points in the mechanical guideline. Thank you very much.
Hello everyone, Drew Tinsley here. I just want to sort of tell a little bit of the background of my involvement in the guides. Obviously, when I got involved in the guides through Isaac, there was a lot of, I would say, much more experienced people than I, certainly in the region. I only joined my first company in Dubai in 2015, but certainly what I learned quite quickly was that there wasn't a lot of guidance for newcomers to the region, early career professionals to essentially land on some of the biggest jobs that you probably ever have worked on in your life, despite having 10 years experience before that, and essentially being set to work on a new set of codes and standards that you didn't know. The codes and standards here have certain nuances that different parts of the world and certain crossovers between British standards and US standards, and then obviously the local code as well. So I think for electrical engineers, it's key to get an understanding of this from these documents, which I think they aim to achieve. In terms of one, obviously the section of design codes and standards is quite self-explanatory. Obviously the key guidelines are DEWA. DEWA is generally built on the back of BS 7671. You have a leading civil defence guideline, the UAE Fire Code, which is obviously built on the back of NFPA guidelines. People like myself that came from the UK are obviously used to a different set of guidelines. So that is something that when you land in this region is significantly different. In terms of income and services, again, projects are generally bigger than projects anywhere else in the world, or certainly in my experience so far. So this aims to, in this section, cover the required engagement you need to have with the local authority of DEWA, and obviously how services are brought to the building. And then your obvious stuff like supply characteristics, 230 volts, 400 volts, 3-phase, and the frequencies that we use in the region. So very high level just information on how supply characteristics are driven. In terms of loads and diversity, one thing that's different in the region is obviously the sort of need to design to total connected load. So that's something that we give guidance on in these guides, and obviously how you would apply diversities in terms of ASHRAE 90.1 and how we can work with DEWA when there are situations that maybe differ from the norm. Under section 4, main distribution, this section generally covers equipment specifications in terms of forms of separation which differ to other parts of the world and DEWA are very pedantic about, and ingress protection and general understanding for engineers in terms of the spare capacities you should be supplying in your designs. There's sections on power factor and surge protection, and just how this should be how this should be considered when a designer picks up a design in this region. Harmonic suppressions covered, motor starters, and the mandatory requirements for DEWA in terms of metering, which is quite important in this region, given the mixed use nature of buildings, large buildings that are landlord driven, but with tenant supplies also. Section 5 covers standby generation in a generic sense. It defines the key principles for standby generation in terms of fire and life safety, how fire and life safety needs to be covered. Critical systems in terms of how we cover the critical systems, and generally anything that requires business continuity. There's also let's say more regional focus in terms of some of the DEWA circulars that have came out recently, which require to have a percentage of your circulation lighting backed up by the generator, which is a particular nuance in the region, as well as covering acoustic treatment of generators, which are generally quite heftily sized in this area. Section 6 in the UPS essentially is covered in the same way as the standby generation. In terms of cabling, in section 7, this is one that often catches people out as they land in the region also. What this section aims to cover is the DEWA requirements, which also sort of leans back onto BS 7671, which most engineers tend to be familiar with anyway. However, it gives more important guidance on how cables should be contained, which sometimes slips the net when people land in the region. Particularly so as everything is designed with total connected load in mind. Under section 8, small power, this is a generic principle again, which covers commercial and domestic applications as well as some industrial applications too. It's largely linked again to BS 7671, but it also talks about the challenges that a designer may face in terms of external parties, such as interior design, architecture, and general look and feel and considerations to have when writing a specification. And one obviously important point to note of the use of RCDs in the region and more how they're grouped together, unlike other parts of the world. Section 9 is lighting, which is generally linked to the CIBSE SLL guidance. However, there's also sections on lighting control, and a very important one, again in the region, emergency lighting, which this guide actually sets out the high level criteria, which can be quite difficult to take from the documents. In section 10, we have fire alarms, which again shows the differences between the local regions, and the final sections, lighting and protection, and earthing and bonding, that covers a section of reference material, which anybody can read at bedtime if you're committed enough. And that's me.
Hello. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome, and I hope that the information we're just about to impart on you is going to be beneficial to you. From a public health point of view, public health and fire protection, we do have specifics that we have to stick to, as we're showing in item 1, design code standards and guidance. We have a whole list of guides that we have to stick to. What I would say is, much like Drew has said earlier, we need to really focus on what the local authorities want. Whilst we have British standards that are used regularly, the focus should be on the local authorities. We have Dubai Electrical Water Authority, that is DEWA, and we have the Dubai Municipality. These are very important authorities, and also civil defence. Any designs that you enter into, you need collaboration with these authorities, and you need to include their requirements, and they aren't necessarily British standards. As an instance, which I'll share more on later, DEWA have a requirement for the amount of water storage that British engineers wouldn't understand. The volume of water they use out there is phenomenal. If we go to item 2, we've got the local green building requirements. These are relatively new requirements. It's the region trying to get up to speed with sustainability and good practice. There are some nuances in there that we need to address. They must be taken into consideration. Again, it's very important around the local authority requirements. They are the key to what we're trying to achieve in the region. Item 3, domestic cold water services, codes and regulations. Well, as I said earlier, it's very important that we embrace what the local authorities want, but we do have some fundamentals that you have to deal with because of the region and the weather conditions out there. The delivery of the water that you get into your building is not going to be the kind of temperatures that you get anywhere else in the world. So you might have water delivered into your building, which will be anywhere between 35 and 40 plus degrees. So the consideration of how you store this and how you deal with the threat of Legionella is very, very important. The volume of water that you have to hold as well for any type of building is a lot more than is anticipated anywhere else, which leads me into item 4. The water storage in Dubai is dictated and clearly laid out in the local regulations, and it has to be calculated accordingly. So the water storage is very, very important. The volume is very important, and how it's stored. Now, the authorities do have certain requirements, i.e. high and low level storage. There is also a very strict regime on metering of water to understand who is paying for what. The authorities are particularly paranoid about who is paying for the water. So it is key to understand what you have to put into the systems with regards to metering strategy. Hot water services. Again, it depends on the type of system that is utilised. Majoritively, it's independent units. They don't often have centralised hot water. It can be offered. Again, it would need to be agreed with the authorities, and you have to work out how that system is going to work. And again, the metering system of who is paying for the water, key and fundamental to what we're trying to achieve. Item 6, water filtration. Water filtration is obviously important. The authorities do have an ability to turn water on and off. You can get a lot of ingress of rather nasty substances into water systems. So depending on what you're building, whether it's commercial, residential, just fundamentally make sure that we have a quite robust filtration system available. Again, it will have to be discussed with the authorities and signed off for them We can apply what we consider good practice from UK codes or European codes. Again, stick to what the authorities are demanding as well, though. Item 7, drainage systems. This is a bit like banging a drum. They do use British standards over there. Unfortunately, you have to apply the authority standards first, and it doesn't work out the same as in Europe. So there are set requirements from the municipality, and those requirements have to be adhered to. They just do like a rule of thumb consideration in circumstances, and they will turn around and say, well, that stack is 6 inches. Now, that's not something that we would necessarily agree with. While drainage just arbitrarily is related to as a 6-inch drainage of 160 mil. Now, these are things that you will have to embrace. And it again, is driven by local engineers. So you need to get your system designed, the fundamentals of it. You can take it to the authorities, you can sit down with them and you can discuss it. But again, it's not just based on British standards. The key, again, is stick to the local authorities' requirements, and then we won't be going far wrong. Stormwater design. There's been a long debate on stormwater design in the region. It will be thrown at people that it doesn't rain, it's a desert, which is totally wrong. The place floods quite often annually, and you will have different highs and different lows according to the seasonals. But just be assured that it rains a lot. So stormwater design is very, very important that you do it correctly. Now, there are IDF curves that the local authorities have made available, and these have to be stuck to. Although, dependent on when you're discussing the system and the area with the engineer, there might be different nuances stuck in there that you would have to work with. Item 9. When you get to LPG systems, again, the authorities are key to this. Civil defence will have a big say on what goes on. You have to apply UAE fire and life safety codes, and you have to use NFPA. NFPA is the requirement in the Middle East and specifically in Dubai. Any designs that you have for LPG, again, you will need to take it to Civil Defence. Just let them have a look at it. They will rubber stamp it, and they will ask for any changes that are required. There have been some fires recently in the Middle East, and so the authorities are getting pretty sensitive. So I would be very mindful of that. And again, utilise the Civil Defence. They will help you. Item 10, water services. I've covered this a little bit already, but the water services are important in as much as the volumes of water that you're dealing with are very big. The way the water is stored is very, very fundamental to what you need to think about. And filtration, treatment, these are all things that need addressing. There are different treatment systems, but you've got to bear in mind the water storage is often very, very hot. So certain systems of disinfection will not function properly. You need to be looking at this and make sure that you get the correct system in for the correct application. Don't think that just anything will work. Item 11, drainage system design consideration. You've got above and below ground drainage. The authorities will dictate to you to a certain degree on pipe sizing. Internal drainage in buildings, there's always a big battle that goes on, especially with constructors. So people on the site will try and water down your design. You have to make sure in your specification that it's written correctly. Simple things like access, maintenance of systems. these can be watered down if they're not covered properly. So make sure that specification is very clear on how you should be doing it. Item 12, stormwater design considerations. There's an ongoing argument in the region. Certain contractors will try to have free discharge of stormwater into the roads and things of that nature. The authorities are definitely leaning against this now due to localized flooding. So your system has to be sized correctly. The only problem being that you might have issues because the local networks quite often not big enough, and therefore you have to attenuate the water on site. The authorities will give you a discharge rate of X amount of litres per second, and anything above that normally has to be stored on site and discharged at a reasonable rate after the peak period. So again, these are things that need to be stuck to. Item 13, LPG. Again, what I would say is pretty much what I've said earlier is the authorities are key to how this has to be addressed, and civil defence will be your go-to place. Civil defence will have a lot to say on what you do with LPG systems, whether they be large commercial systems or just small residential dwellings. All of them have high consideration for safety. That's pretty much covered everything. One thing I would just pass on to you, and I know I've been saying it all the way through, but the authorities are key to what we do in the region. And please, I would suggest that you make sure that you have that collaboration with them. As a footnote, whilst in my time with Polypipe, I did write some 5-minute design guides, which will help you a bit more. So it might pay to have a word with Polypipe and see if you can get a copy of these 5-minute design guides to assist you a little bit more. Okay, guys, that's me done for today.
We're going to move in the question answer session now. May I please ask the speakers to turn their cameras on so it's visible. So the first question we have is that, is this guideline applicable only for Dubai?
Yes.
I think I'll take that answer. Basically, when we started the whole lesson, the plan was that we would start with Dubai, and one of the remit for this year, our technical committee, with the assistance with Mr. Williams, who I believe is on the call now, is to tackle. I'm personally currently doing the job in Abu Dhabi, so it's only politically correct for us to do one for Abu Dhabi. So the answer to your question is that yes, this is purely for Dubai, but this year we'll be tackling Abu Dhabi, which would be the same format as we've done for Dubai. Thank you.
The other question is, are the municipality requirements defined in the guidelines? So it would be good if someone from the mechanical, electrical, and public health share their view on this question.
What is the
yes,
question?
I mean, we tried to, for the mechanical side, we tried to put mainly the green building regulations requirements in the guide.
Yeah, from a public health point of view, we've outlined in the guidelines, we've outlined what the authorities are and the regulations they have, but they're not necessarily easy guidelines to get hold of. Now, this is potentially something I could share. I'll talk you through with Isaac, and we'll find some way of sharing the authority requirements for public health and fire protection.
Drew, do you want to share your view from the electrical side?
I think as you go through the guide, I think the most important thing is that for each of those sections of electrical services, it sets out exactly who you need to engage in that part of the design, and it also sets out what guidance that you need to follow in each part of that design. It isn't a get out of jail free card with the municipalities. Unfortunately, we all have to go through that process. But what it does do is sets out the principles of where and when you need to have those conversations with DEWA. Or the like.
There's a question about, can these guidelines be presented to authorities during discussion, and will that benefit? Azmi, do you want to take that?
Yes, of course, we can present them. Actually, this is the idea as well. In addition to the local engineers and students who will benefit from this guidelines, also presenting them to the authorities will be helpful. Will reflect our CIBSE commitment towards the local region. And this is actually what we aim from these guidelines, to reflect our commitment.
There's a question about the current situation. Is there any requirements of COVID-19 included in these requirements?
I think if I may take this, I mean, CIBSE started editing these documents latter part of last year. And obviously, they have got a lot of work to do before the pandemic became the whole COVID-19 became a pandemic. So the simple answer to your question is no.
There's no requirements from the municipalities anyway yet. So there's nothing official that came as a circular from municipalities. However, there will be some work done by ESMA that might hit on the air conditioning, but still nothing is out yet in the UAE.
And I would like to add also that yes, that we are reflecting actually what is there in the regulations, and what is there in the regulations is a good basis also to tackle the COVID-19 pandemic. When we take care of the ventilation in our buildings, how the ventilation is operated, when we take care about the indoor air comfort in buildings, and we follow the local regulations which are already set, and when we take care about the air movement and how rooms are isolated in buildings, these basics which are already there in the regulations will really be a good start. However, our guideline is just a reflection of what is there in the regulations. And there is nothing like talking about COVID-19, as Hassan said. Could be a good basis for us, really, if we follow them properly during the design stage, construction, and most importantly, during the operational phases of the job, of the building.
I mean, adding to that, there are the CIBSE guidelines for COVID-19. You can refer to that. They're available for free on the CIBSE website.
There's a question about how the documents will be shared. I think this was covered by the speakers, but it would be good, Reid or Isaac, if you just reiterate the...
That's fine. Yeah, so these will be, obviously, we're not in person, so we were planning on getting some hard copies.
Reid, I think you're on mute.
Reid, I think you're on mute.
Yes, thank you.
So you need to say that from the beginning.
Now, yeah?
Yes.
Thank you. So we would have been having a face-to-face session with this launch in ordinary times, and there would have been a whole bunch of hard copies given out at the event. Now, clearly, this needs to be issued electronically, which it will be. It will be available on the CIBSE members area of the website, which has a whole raft of information and fantastic guidance there. And we will be sending links out to everybody post this launch. So it will be available for all. that have access to the CIBSE members area on the website.
There is another specific question on, can the guides also cover requirements for authorities from other emirates such as SIWA, ADDC, ADM, SM, ADSSC?
Yeah, I can answer that as well, Farah. Just it's been answered already. Right, just to be very clear, this when we first looked at this, we had to take this in small steps. So you can imagine the task in hand if we try and cover all the Emirates, KSA, Qatar, all in one guide. Unfortunately, there's way too much to do in one attempt, and we would never have got it finished. So this is purely a Dubai focused guide. It's not a code. There's several questions about this relating to a code. It's not a code. It's a guide. So this is Dubai, as Isaac said earlier. The intention is for the rest of this year at least, the technical committee is going to continue working on this and replicating a similar document for other Emirates, and then possibly for KSA and Qatar. So as the technical committee do that piece of work, we'll have another launch event. So over a period of time, we will have a series of guides, minimum design guides, that will eventually cover most areas. Okay? Hopefully that answers the question.
And just to add to what Reed said, I mean, like all these things, we would need, as I said in my presentation, we need your feedback. So please, we would encourage you to have a read through it. If there are things that you feel that it should be added, because I've seen a question about someone asking the question, what about district cooling? Yeah, fine. If people feel that we should cover district cooling, this is the beginning of the whole process. If the people feel that district cooling should be covered, just send your commentary to us and we will review it. And if we feel that is appropriate, it will be included. All right. With regard to the local authority tool, guys, there was a question about what about the unwritten codes or unwritten guides, etc. As much as possible from, I've been here, I mean, this is my 12th year now, wherever possible, and others who contributed to this, we've included that. But again, if someone knows something which is not in there and he feels that, yeah, it would be good to be captured in this manual, in this guideline, please by all means share it with us. Thank you.
I think we're going to wrap up the Q&A session here. So if there is any more questions, could you please email us? At the end of the session, we'll show a CIBSE email address. And if you have any questions that hasn't been answered or you want to discuss anything further with any of the speakers, please email us. So we will move to the next part of the presentation. We're a bit tight on time. We have 8 minutes to complete this session today. So the next part of the presentation is to give a little bit introduction about the CIBSE memberships and what Knowledge Portal is about. And our Vice Chair Imran will be presenting that. So may I please ask everybody to check if they're still on mute, and some people might need to turn their cameras off to keep the bandwidth. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Farah. This is Imran here. Just to run you guys quickly through the different membership grades, what we have in CIBSE. So firstly, is the way the grades are set up. It's whether you're starting out or have been working in the field for many years, already professionally registered with another engineering institutions. CIBSE membership grades means that there's a level to suit everyone. The intention of CIBSE is actually to support you on a day-to-day basis and help you develop professionally within the building services industry. So just to start on the left side, the most senior grade we have is the fellow, which is predominantly for the professional engineers contributing to the industry in a senior role with significant autonomy and responsibility. The next one is the member grade. These again relates to individuals who are involved in technical and commercial leadership, and this. And then This is important grade if you are involved in CEng and IEng, if you're looking for chartership, etc. And the next one is the associate grade. This is at the management level and those growing into the leadership roles. And if you want to become an IEng, incorporated engineer, you will opt for this particular grade. The next one is the licentiate grade. This is mainly for the technicians, the engineering technicians, or if you don't have engineering degree, this grade will suit those individuals. The next one is the graduate grade, which is predominantly for the young engineers or the fresh graduates coming out of university, and is a good platform to get their degrees evaluated by CIBSE, and they can start the process working towards associate or member level. The right hand side is the student membership. There are two kinds. One is the part time, which has an application, which does not have an application fee and has a small subscription fee of £41 or 192 dirhams. And the student full time, there is no membership fee associated to that. Main reason being is CIBSE strongly believes in supporting the students in the region and become successful building services engineers in the years to come. Um, the next grade, which is the affiliate, and there are no actual requirements for that. Anyone can become enrolled with CIBSE by getting an affiliate membership to the name. The application fee for that is £25 or 117 dirhams, and the subscription fee is 637 dirhams or 136 pounds. There are the charges and fees associated to the other grades. You can find it on the link which is mentioned here, and it's very well defined on the website. So there are many benefits of the membership. Farah, if you can change the slide. Yeah, so like you can see from this guide, the slide, there are many benefits of the membership. You get access to the CIBSE journal, the electronic newsletter. You can get association to different CIBSE societies, which is the lighting Society of Lighting Engineers, public health engineers, facade engineering, vertical transportation, etc. You can also have networking opportunities with the different groups we have within the CIBSE, which is the WIPSE, which is a woman in building services industry, the Young Engineers Network, and also you can collaborate with the ASHRAE within the region. The another very key aspect which you'll be able to obtain being a member is getting access to the knowledge portal, the training courses and events. There are a lot of interesting guides which are available for free for the members to download, and this particular guide which we have mentioned will also go into this particular knowledge portal. So there are many advantages to it, and CIBSE being a core discipline focusing on all the building services industry together, there are a lot of benefits associated to be part of CIBSE. That's it from my side. Over to you, Farah.
Thank you, Imran. So we are nearly at the end of the session, and before I do the closing, I want to reach out to all the speakers and say, do you want to share something with our audience as a last thought?
No, thank you. Thank you, Farah.
Reed, Hassan.
Yes, thanks, guys. Thank you very much. Again, it's fantastic to see so many people join this event, this webinar. There's clearly a lot of interest in this. It's definitely needed in the region, and I'm sure a lot of people get benefit from it. If anyone does have issues with membership or gaining access to the CIBSE knowledge portal, drop us a line, and we'll get back to you. Okay.
For me, it's about any one who wants to become a CIBSE member and needs any mentoring. Please reach out to me through the UAE CIBSE email address, and I will endeavor to assist you. Thank you.
Yeah, on the back of that, sorry, me again, the back of that, Isaac and a few of us are working with many people in terms of chartered status applications as well. We're here to support. My new position on the committee this year is as membership champion. So the stuff that Imran's kindly just presented will be the stuff that I will be pushing forward. So if you've got any particular, even detailed questions about membership in general, then by all means, again, contact me through the email address provided, and we'll get straight back to you. Thanks, Isaac.
Keith, do you want to add something?
Yeah, I just think I better let people know that at the moment I'm in the UK in lockdown. But if anybody needs any information, if you channel any questions or anything through Isaac, he can give you a forwarding address for me, and I'll try and assist wherever I can.
Hassan?
Thank you, everyone. I think we need now feedback on these design guides and ideas to improve them, and maybe ideas for other design guidelines that we will be producing in the future. Thank you, everyone.
So I would like to extend a thank you to our speakers today, the contributors, the collaborators, the participants and audiences who joined us today for this session. It was really inspiring to see 100+ people joining for this chat and sharing their ideas and thoughts through the messaging function. So I would like to extend a thank you. We look forward to coming back to you with lots of other events like this, but please do reach out to the CIBSE UAE committee to be part of our technical committee, or join us as a member, or just to have a chat and have a cup of coffee. Really do reach out to us. The function of the committee is to share knowledge, to build collaboration, to push forward innovative thinking and understanding in building services engineering, especially in this region. And we strive to work with the UAE committee, members or non-members, to take these conversations forward. So we really look forward to receiving emails, messages from you, and reach out to us. And we will see you in our next event. So thank you so much for joining us, and thank you everyone for your time.
Thanks all.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye.
Thank you.